Well, welcome again, everyone. If you are here for the California Advancing PREA Orientation and Panel for Advocates and Leaders, you're in the right place. I'm here with JDI and here as a staff of Valor. So I'll introduce myself since I'm already speaking. I am Marcela Rojas. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the project managers here at Valor, and I'm joined by several of my colleagues. So I will go ahead and allow them to introduce themselves as well. I'll hand it off to Jenica for now.
Yeah, thank you, Marcella. Hi, folks. My name is Jenica Sinor. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a project coordinator here at Valor. And I'll pass it to Edward.
Hey everyone, Edward Cervantes here. I use he, him pronouns. I'm with JDI, Senior Program Officer. I think I know most of you from this work and from our meetings. Yeah, happy to be here. And I do want to introduce our newest colleague, Layla, who's not on this intro slide, but they're joining the Advancing PREA project. So Layla, if you want to just say hello really quick.
Yeah, hi everyone. Layla Dos, they, them with JDI Program Officer. Really glad to be here. Thank you.
And Jessica.
Yay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Sedano Seipel. I also use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior program director with JDI. And I think I'm the person on this team that's been on this project the longest. So I'm excited to share sort of that historical perspective as we roll into year 9 or maybe 10. We've kind of lost track of this project.
Okay, so now that you know all of us, we'd love to know who you are and who's all in the space today. While we know that we have folks from a lot of different organizations and different spaces, this webinar and orientation is kind of geared towards RCCs. We know that information is going to be super helpful for everyone involved, but just keep that in mind. But if you could put that in the chat, your name, pronouns, your role at your organization, and then the organization's name would be really helpful and amazing. Awesome. Yeah, we've got a couple folks already in the chat. Hello. Beautiful. Okay. And then we can talk a little bit. Wow, we've got so many people coming. Awesome. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about Valor's mission. So Valor US, formerly the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault, or CalCASA, is committed to preventing and ending sexual violence by advancing equity and eradicating oppression. We provide leadership, vision, and resources to rape crisis centers, individuals, and other entities committed to ending sexual violence. Ultimately, what we envision is a world free from violence where the dignity of every person is valued and respected.
Hey, and JDI's mission, or Just Detention International, JDI for short, we are a health and human rights organization that seeks to end sexual abuse in all forms of detention. We carry out our mission by working with corrections officials, rape crisis advocates, and also policymakers to make detention facilities safer. We promote public attitudes that value the dignity and safety of people in detention. And we work to support incarcerated survivors of sexual abuse and sexual harassment. So we do some direct services. JDI's core principle is that when the government takes away somebody's freedom, it takes on an absolute responsibility to protect that person's safety. No matter what crime someone has committed, rape is never part of the penalty.
And a little bit more about the project that the 4 of us are working on. Like Jessica mentioned, we're on year 9, potentially year 10, and we're funded by the California Office of Emergency Services, also known as CalOES. And the project is often known by the name California Advancing PREA. And this particular project allows both Valor and JDI to partner with each other in offering support and guidance to specifically California rape crisis centers, on how to build strong relationships with the California Department of Corrections and rehabilitation staff, and really how to create some sustainable agreements and protocols for the provision of victim services to survivors. Our team has continued to focus on creating some really fundamental culture change on both the correction side and the advocacy side. And Jessica will talk about that in more detail later on. But over time, we've been able to put many MOUs in place between CDCR facilities and our local rape crisis centers, and continue to provide technical training and assistance, however it's needed. So I'll talk a little bit more about what kind of technical assistance and training we're able to provide, and it's that capacity has really grown over the years. So I'm excited to show folks what we're able to offer. And we really just want to acknowledge we've seen a lot of progress happen, but we also know there's going to be gaps and challenges like any program. And so we're really here to support folks in making services available to survivors behind bars. And I'll hand it off to Jenica to talk about objectives.
Thank you. So our objectives today in this training, we're going to highlight training and technical assistance resources and opportunities available to advocates and leaders that are supporting incarcerated survivors. We'll also introduce an approach to developing long-term goals and supporting incarcerated survivors as a whole. And then we'll also have, during our panel, we'll highlight leadership practices that create comprehensive programming when you're looking at supporting incarcerated folks.
Thank you. So as the elder of the project, I wanted to give kind of just like a historical like snapshot of kind of where we came from and where we are now and how we got here. And as we mentioned, we are 9, perhaps 10 years into this project, and it both feels like 20 and 5 at the same time. It's gone by so quickly, and at the same time, there's still more work to do. But I do want to briefly go over some of the project goals, and these are the same that they've always been since we started. If someone could move on to there we go, thank you. So yeah, the project briefly has 3 goals, right? To help advocates and prison staff understand each other's roles and culture, which is easier said than done. We come from very different, workplace cultures. But I think what's so powerful is maintaining the same goal of safety. That's what everyone wants, right? Everyone wants people to be safe. Building the capacity of rape crisis centers and prisons and jail staff too, to provide trauma-informed services to survivors, and then to develop a program of services for survivors that is sustainable, something that can keep moving as folks, leave their positions, as new folks come on. We want to build a program that doesn't interrupt services for folks as those things happen. I do want to acknowledge too, for anyone that's been around as long as I have, you may remember the early days of this project were focused on the CDCR, the state prison facilities only. It's only in the past, I can't even begin to think, like handful of years really, that we started opening up the ability to work with jails as well. So that work is still new, even to us. And that's why so much of our work is focused on CDCRs, because initially that was really the primary focus of the project. Next slide, please. So I want to paint a picture for folks. It's 2010, and I am a brand new advocate, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm handed a case file, and it's for someone who is incarcerated at RJ Donovan, which is a CDCR facility here in San Diego where I'm at. And I'm like, I'm told, here, go help this person. And at that time, I had absolutely no idea what that meant. I didn't even know that I could write a letter to a person. I didn't know if I could see that person. I knew absolutely nothing. And in fact, it was the advocacy of the survivor that I worked with who put me in touch with JDI initially. Like that was how it was in the beginning, that survivors, and it still is that way, that survivors were advocating for themselves and sharing resources with me as an advocate. At that time, back then, and even when the project first started, there was no hotline access. There was no MOUs, no sort of formal relationships between any facilities and rape crisis centers. So it was really kind of the Wild West, and we were kind of making it up as we went along. When I first started working at JDI, now fast forward year 8, 9 years ago, I think one of the biggest things that surprised me was, I think to a certain extent, I expected that there would be resistance or suspicion or hesitation on the part of corrections to work with us, right? Like I was used to that. I knew it would come and I was like prepared to have those conversations. I think what surprised me was I wasn't ready to have those conversations with other advocates. There was a lot of resistance, a lot of hesitance, a lot of fear of the unknown, that I saw in a lot of rape crisis centers really early on in this project, to work with detention facilities. And I think there's a lot of reasons why that is, and a lot of those feelings, still exist today, and understandably so. I know, like, if I can speak personally for myself, I wasn't thinking about incarcerated survivors when I first became an advocate. That wasn't the survivor I had in mind, right? And so I had to really open up my own understanding of who a survivor is when I started doing this work. And I've seen that sort of opening up happening across the field in really dramatic ways, in the 8, 9 years that we've been doing this work. And that sort of resistance has shifted to like how do I do it better? And that's a really, really exciting change to see. Back in 2010, when I first started as an advocate, there was no PREA standards, right? There was no structure. And now we at least have these structures, these sort of understanding, these expectations that folks were supposed to work with each other. And that doing that has created sort of an ability for us to get MOUs, to get that confidential hotline access, to get letter writing, to make it so that folks know who we are and that it's not sort of this wild out of the box thing. Now it's just par for the course, right? That facilities know that they're supposed to be working with rape crisis centers and making those services available. I do want to acknowledge too that initial MOU process took a lot of back and forth. I remember traveling to every single facility and hosting meetings about the MOUs, and oh my gosh, the back and forth with CDCR legal. And it was years in the making for us to be able to get that confidentiality language in the MOU that we see now. And it's really a testament to the persistence of so many, and my cat walking by, he says hello, the persistence of so many, folks on the ground that were, really willing to lean into the unknown. I think it took a lot of courage for folks to do that. And I'm really excited that I was able to be in those early conversations, and I'm excited to see how much has changed since then. And I want to acknowledge too that the work is ongoing. Like we're not done. We continue to be in regular communication with CDCR. There's work that we know still needs to be done. And here we go. These are some of the conversations that we have with folks from CDCR pretty regularly about making sure that the MOUs are out of date, and also, or that they're in date, but also that they're not just words on paper, that like people are actually putting them into practice. Monitoring confidential hotline calls and letter correspondence. Like if you're hearing from folks that for one reason or another that services aren't confidential, that's the kind of thing that we want to know about so that we can communicate that to folks. We also, are making sure that the information that survivors have is accurate, that it's up to date, that it's available, that people know how to find your hotline number, right, if they need it. And then, of course, making sure that the PREA compliance managers or the facility-based staff that are responsible for sexual safety have relationships with you all as advocates, and that you all have relationships with them, and you're able to communicate with each other. I imagine there may be some folks who are listening who have probably already heard from their facility-based PREA compliance manager, or maybe even the statewide PREA coordinator, because I know he's been doing a lot of outreach to rape crisis centers recently. And that's exactly the kind of thing we want to see happen. We want to see more of that communication, and more opportunities to kind of develop understanding. And I believe that is, I'm passing things on to Marcella now.
Yes, thank you, Jessica, for setting that up. So I want to highlight that JDI and Valor created a barriers to access reporting form several years ago out of conversations we had with CDCR. Often the statewide PREA coordinator will ask us, are you having trouble reaching any of the CDCR facilities? Are the rape crisis centers having any trouble reaching the CDCR facilities? And we speak with folks sometimes on a monthly basis and with other folks much less often due to capacity or for whatever reason that may be. And we wanted to be able to create an opportunity for rape crisis centers to not have to set up a whole call with us to be able to explain what's going on, but rather to submit it to us. And then we can follow up later if we need a little, additional information. Oftentimes our CDCR partners will ask us for a lot of details so that they know who to reach out to about issues that are coming up. So this might be maybe an incarcerated survivor is unable to access your services. Maybe it's that you're trying to set up an in-person meeting with them and you're struggling to advocate for that survivor and you need some additional support from us or from CDCR headquarters. It might be that facilities are not treating your services as confidential. Maybe they're reading letters and maybe there's something going on with the phone lines. Maybe there's some sort of retaliation going on or harassment going on. And while we can certainly coach you through advocating for the survivor, we also want to be able to make this known to CDCR so that their leadership team can also acknowledge and help us change that behavior that's going on. So I have dropped that in the chat. I will also make sure that it's on a web page for you all when I post the webinar recording. But I highly encourage folks that are partnering with CDCR to submit any sort of barriers that you're experiencing within this form. And if you also want to have a chat with us and talk through some scenarios, we're happy to do that too. I'll talk a little bit more about how we can support you later on, but I also want to highlight if you are working with the county jail and you're experiencing barriers, I encourage you to also submit in this form as well, or to reach out to us directly. I will just acknowledge county jails and CDCR have very different systems. Headquarters at CDCR has a much stronger, actually has an oversight in some ways for each individual CDCR facility, whereas county jails, they don't have an oversight committee for all of the county jails here in California. So we wouldn't necessarily be able to reach out to a higher up and have them acknowledge and help us change behavior. But we could track and monitor, which as a coalition is incredibly important to know and understand the sorts of patterns of abuse that you might be seeing or the inaccessibility issues that you're seeing or the confidentiality issues you're seeing in county jails. It really does help us support other advocates in understanding what are some of the barriers that you may be getting into and how can you advocate for survivors in a way that is really sustainable for folks on the inside. So please use this form. It often is very underutilized, so we have to remind folks, please reach out to us or submit something via this form. And I'm going to share some posters that folks at CDCR have been able to post near the phones. This poster was created many moons ago, and we always want to make sure that these posters remain at CDCR within their facilities near the phone lines. Something that we often encourage advocates and leaders at rape crisis centers to do is to conduct some sort of partnership visit to make sure that CDCR still has access to these posters, to make sure that they're not being teared down by other folks, to make sure they have a big stack so they can replace the posters if they do get taken down. So this is an example from Sure Helpline, but I also want to acknowledge that we have other posters that folks can utilize if you're working with a juvenile hall, if you're working with a county jail. We also have some brochures you can use. And these are fillable posters and brochures that you can plug your RCC logo into. And if you're struggling to plug that logo in, please email me. I will drop my email in the chat and I can have Valor's graphic designer plug that in for you. I will just say We like to have these ready and available for you all, because I know sometimes if you're working at a local agency, you don't have a graphic designer. You might come to us and say, hey, what should I put on this poster? We were getting a lot of requests on what should I include on a poster, or I created this poster, can you edit it? And so one thing we found was, let's just have the same poster for everyone, so that if someone's being transferred at a CDCR facility, or someone is being transferred from a county jail to a CDCR facility, that they recognize these posters, and to know that these are rape crisis centers that can be trusted. So I highlight that to say, the more requests we get for certain things, the more we're able to make any changes. Like I see, Rachel, you've asked, are there any available in other languages? We actually do not. So thank you for asking. If there are specific languages you would like to see, please let us know, and we can find someone who can help us translate them into a language that is necessary for you. And I know CDCR is probably interested in making sure that these are available in different languages as well. So we will also reach out to them and see if they have any availability or capacity to translate any of our materials into a different language. So yes, Rachel, feel free to reach out via email and let me know if there's any specific languages you're hoping for. And I think we do have some posters in Hmong. So I misspoke. We do have that. So any other languages, please do let us know. And then, as many of you may already know on this call, confidentiality at CDCR was a conversation that we had many moons ago and continue to have, especially around letter correspondence. Like Jessica mentioned, I think that a lot of folks are in our field are unfamiliar with how do you provide advocacy via letter. A lot of concerns around, are these letters being read? You know, survivors are sharing very private and traumatic experiences sometimes in these letters. And so how can we protect those stories? How can we prevent retaliation? And so a piece of this puzzle was ensuring that these letters are being treated as confidential. And in order to make sure that they're being treated as confidential, we started off by putting evidence code 1035.4, privileged communication, on the front of an envelope. And this means that all letters with this code on the outside are not to be read by staff and are only to be opened in the presence of the incarcerated person. And so in order to really protect folks, I encourage folks to use this code on your letter correspondence to any survivor within CDCR. I will actually also drop a label in the chat that you all can print out, so you don't have to write it out every time. And you will be able to use Avery 5160, which is the exact size of that label. And it becomes a sticker if you have some sort of sticker making machine. So I encourage folks to utilize that. And I'm seeing Heather in the chat saying, if you need help with Arabic language, let me know. We have an international volunteer that can help with that. And she dropped her email in the chat. So thank you, Heather. This is why we love our advocates. Y'all are here to support each other. And I appreciate that. Thanks, Heather. And I also just really want to emphasize this code is respected by CDCR, and we have conversations with CDCR about if it may not be respected, or if it's not being utilized in the mailroom for whatever reason, if there's turnover and the staff isn't aware of what this code means. But if you're working at a county jail, always, always, always don't make the assumption that this code is respected at the county jails. Always ask how letters from your rape crisis center are currently being treated. And then you can have that conversation about, well, 1035.4 protects communication between advocates and survivors, and continue that conversation with your jail staff partners. And then just a reminder, this is something that I think advocates will often get overwhelmed with. How do I serve incarcerated survivors? What's something that I can change immediately within my agency to really institutionalize the fact that we serve incarcerated survivors? Sometimes we'll get calls from survivors that are telling us, I called the hotline and they told us they don't serve people that are incarcerated. And so this is always really disheartening to hear, but I think aside from training advocates to on how to support incarcerated survivors, another piece of this is writing this into your intake form. So obviously you always ask a survivor their name, but we also want to make sure there's space for a CDCR number or an identification number, the facility name, and then to always ask at the end of the call for permission, for consent, to be able to follow up via mail if that's something that the survivor is interested in. We don't want to send a package and a letter without getting consent from the survivor. They might, be fearful of retaliation for even communicating with someone who works at a rape crisis center. So always train your advocates to make sure that they are getting consent from the survivor to be able to follow up via mail. And I'm going to talk about how Valor and JDI can support advocates. So this is a long list that since Jessica and I have started, I think has continued to grow. You'll see that the technical assistance side is quite heavy, and because it really is a much more broad way that we can support advocates. I think oftentimes folks see Valor and JDI and think, oh, they host webinars or they can come train our advocates at our 40-hour training. But really what we're mostly doing on the day-to-day is providing technical assistance. So I feel like that's a very jargony word, and sometimes people are like, what does that mean? So I have some actual examples that are tangible for you all to take a look at. And so you can email any four of us on this call. We're going to have our emails at the end of the webinar on any sort of problem-solving issues with the facilities. Anything from confidentiality issues to access issues to how do I have a difficult conversation with the correctional officer? How do I what are some things I need to understand about my facility? What should I know about the culture of this facility? What should I know about the policies at these facilities? And we may not even know those answers, but we will find them and we will connect you to people that can support you in that way. I know we also have survivors that are trying to safety plan or trying to make sure that they're safe within the facility and may want to talk that through with you as an advocate. And that might be something new for you. That might be something that you're not used to. You might be more used to working with survivors who aren't limited in their autonomy, and so that it may be, challenging to figure out how do I safety plan for someone who is incarcerated. So we can work with you on that. We can also work with you and your leadership team on developing an MOU. I know with CDCR facilities, those MOUs have been developed, so we can also help you with figuring out who you need to talk to renew that MOU, or if you're working with the county jails, we're happy to work with you on developing an entirely new MOU or negotiating a new one, making sure that confidentiality is part of that MOU. We're also happy to take a look at any materials, whether that's your outreach materials or whether that's your healing and recovery related materials. Always happy to give you feedback on that. You want to send us an email and say, hey, Marcella, Jenica, Jessica, Edward, can I get some feedback on this? And we're happy to do that. Also happy to hop on a call for that. If you are just now starting your program, we're happy to figure out what's your project strategy, what's your communications plan with your partner, state facility or county jail. If you are a leader in your organization and you're interested in transforming your organizational structure and the support that you provide to one or two or three advocates going into detention settings or, working with survivors that are behind bars, we're happy to support you in shifting any sort of staffing or organizational structures. Of course, with your leadership team, this really is an organization-wide way that we can support folks. Another piece of the puzzle too, that you all know there's a lot of turnover in our field. A lot of advocates will go to another rape crisis center or go to a different field or another organization. And that history of the partnership with CDCR or your county jail may not be written down. I know folks are often in crisis mode at our centers, and what we really try to do is maintain the history of your program so that when you do have a new advocate, we can support in onboarding that advocate. We can support in helping the advocate understand what that relationship looked like before, and where the previous advocate was in maintaining that relationship or working on certain goals. So happy to do that. Of course, if we've never worked with you, it's really hard to do that. So I will just say, if we've worked with you, we have that history. If we haven't before, then we welcome you, and we hope we can hold space for that relationship you're trying to build. Two more things before I lose my breath. Support with preparation of site visits or partnership visits and meetings with correctional staff. Especially if it's your first meeting with a correctional institution, you might be wondering, what are we going to talk about? What should we talk about? What should I prioritize? What are things that I should bring up? Who should I bring with me? Can you come with us? You might have a lot of questions. And 9 times out of 10, we may be able to come with you, but if not, we can absolutely prepare you for having that meeting or having that site visit. If it's online, we are there. We're happy to co-facilitate with you. So that's always an option. But again, always happy to prep if it's better suited that it's just the Rape Crisis Center there for the site visitor meeting. I already mentioned we provide training. You're here for this webinar. It's been a while since we've done an orientation, but we've seen so many new faces over the last year that we thought, let's do an orientation before we even get into the webinars and the office hours that we typically provide. For the web conferences and the office hours, it's typically our team, Jessica and Jenica and Edward, who are available for those webinars and office hours, but oftentimes we will also bring in other local advocates to talk about their experiences. So we will be doing that very, very soon today. And then, of course, I just want to explicitly say we have advocates reach out to our team to ask, hey, can you come in for our 40-hour training? I'm trying to get our volunteers and our staff trained up on this topic, or maybe you're having a one-off training during Sexual Assault Awareness Month, or whatever it may be. We're available to provide training and provide some more specialized training if you're looking for anything in particular. And then last but not least, and almost most importantly, one of my favorite things that we're able to do is connect you all to each other. In particular, the California Rape Crisis Centers, we meet on a monthly basis. These are called our PREA Advocate monthly meetings. This is an advocate-specific space for folks to channel all of our knowledge and expertise and share how we overcome some of the challenges we experience. So sometimes we'll have some guest speakers, and sometimes you all just come with a load of questions that we're able to collectively respond to. So if folks are interested in reaching out and attending those meetings, Jenica is the one that will invite you to that calendar invite and sort of help orient you to what's going on in that meeting and what the purpose and the goal is. So like I said, you'll see Jenica's email later on at the end of the webinar. Coalition building with organizations serving and organizing with people impacted by the system. This is something that JDI and Valor have been doing. I know JDI has a survivor council, specifically working with folks that were formerly incarcerated and that are also survivors. And that's a big piece of their coalition building. But we're also collaborating with other organizations that may not be doing direct service work, but that may be doing policy advocacy. And so we're connected with folks like that. And then, of course, part of coalition building is emotional support for our advocates and our leaders. We know how difficult this work can be. As resilient as we all are, we all need each other. We all would really would benefit from emotional support when undergoing the work that we do. So that is always available to you across the board: training, technical assistance, and coalition building. So I also just want to pause because that was a lot of information, and see if my team wants to add anything. And if not, I have a poll question coming up.
I don't think so, no.
I just wanted to add, we often hear folks say like, oh, I didn't want to bug you, or, oh, I didn't want to reach out, or, oh, it seems like a silly question. There's like no such thing as a silly question. And this is our role. Our role is to support you all. Our success is when you all are successful and you all are feeling supported. And so just really want to reiterate, like, please feel comfortable reaching out, no matter how big or how small that question might be. We are here to be bugged. Yeah, Jessica, exactly. Please.
100%.
And we also love to hear about your successes. Like when you're doing
Mhm.
something cool, when something has worked, we really get excited about it. And we love to share with one another, like, oh my gosh, guess what they're doing? Like, so
Yes.
please share your successes.
Absolutely. And we're happy to share that with other advocates too. Yes. All right, y'all. So I'm going to pop up a poll question. And this is, what kind of technical assistance have you participated in? Apologies for that typo. That's going to bug me. So let us know if you have participated in technical assistance with us. And then what kind of technical assistance would you benefit from if you haven't yet? So go ahead and let us know. And you can select all or just one, just depending on what you participated in. And I'm going to leave this up for a minute or two to give folks a chance to respond. I know it takes some time to read through what's up here. Also, it just helps me know essentially what do folks know that we do? Sometimes you don't even know what you can ask for until we tell you what you can ask for. So that's really the goal of us showing you how we can support you, so that you know what we can support you on. And I'm sure inevitably I will leave this meeting and think, oh, I forgot to add that thing in here. And I'm seeing Palmira. I have not asked for technical support, but will likely do so in the future. That makes us very happy. Thank you. All right. I've seen about almost 40% of folks have responded. A lot of y'all come to us for support with MOU development, material development and feedback, guidance on safety planning. Amazing. And then let me go down here to see what folks need support on. I'm seeing problem solving with facilities, guidance on safety planning with survivors, support with MOU development, material development and feedback. Amazing. Creating organizational structure and support, which we'll talk a little bit, we won't talk about that, but Connie and Lisa will be talking about that later on in terms of how they provide their staffing organizational support. I see Cooper is saying we're just getting started up again with our CSEC program. Absolutely. And I think you're going to see a lot of intersections between the CSEC program and the juvenile facility. And so we're happy to support you on that as well. Thank you, Cooper. Emily is saying everything. She's new. I'm excited to see some new faces. We're happy to support you. So I'm going to end the poll for now, but I appreciate you all for participating. I'll share the results. It looks like across the board, folks are going to utilize all of our support. So that makes me super, super happy. And I also want to share some resources that are available to you now, in particular for folks that are revamping their program, people that are wondering, is there something that's missing in my program? Or maybe you're entirely new and you don't know where to start. Valor and JDI have created a checklist on how to support incarcerated survivors at RCCs. I don't really like the concept of a checklist, because supporting incarcerated survivors isn't just like, I did it, now we've done the work, but it does help you in sort of, in some ways, institutionalizing your program and making sure that all the boxes are checked, and then maintaining the work that you're doing. So this checklist can be utilized in a lot of ways. Like I said up here on the slide, it can help identify gaps in our rape crisis center's incarcerated survivor or PREA program, whatever it is that you may be calling it. This is also a really helpful tool for advocates. You can share this with your supervisors to share your progress, to share areas where you might need support. I really have to say we love it when you bring your leadership team to our meetings as well, if they're interested in learning a little bit more. PREA, the California Advancing PREA project is often pretty unique because we are technical assistance providers to our advocates, but I think sometimes our leaders may not attend our meetings or may not know they're able to, and you're absolutely welcome to. So I emphasize that. The checklist can also serve as a needs assessment for us as TA providers, and it can guide us in supporting you all in the work that you're doing. So I will drop this checklist in the chat, and it is you can, you can check things off, you can write that it's been completed, you can write that it's in progress, you can write little comments and changes. And something that I really want to emphasize is we can support you in prioritizing which you should be working on first, just depending on where you're at in your program, what the culture of your facility is, and what the culture of your partnership is, or what the culture of your own rape crisis center is. So I highly encourage folks checking that out, filling it out, sharing it with your team, and if you're open to it, sharing it with us as well. And then we've got onboarding resources for advocates supporting incarcerated survivors. This is a web page we created on the Valor website. You'll see a screenshot up here of what it looks like. And it is almost every single resource we've created in the last 9 years. So I saw someone message me and was like, hey, is there an MOU template available? There is, and it's on this web page. So this is often an onboarding resource or web page that we share with folks that have just started on the project that say, hey, I'm new, what do I need to know? We will share this web page with you and sort of identify 1, 2, or 3 resources to take a look at first. For those of you that are ready to read all of them, I would say, don't worry, you don't have to do it all at once. There is a lot on this web page, but the topics cover anything from service provision, how to support incarcerated survivors, maintaining partnerships with corrections, having conversations about confidentiality, how to advocate for survivors with corrections, in-reach and outreach for incarcerated survivors, and then building a rape crisis center's capacity to serve incarcerated survivors. So one of my favorite handouts that's on this list is building an incarcerated survivor team. Often we'll see there's one advocate that's responding to all the incarcerated survivors hotline calls or responding to all the letter correspondence. And then someone ends up going to a forensic exam who has not answered a hotline call or responded to a letter and has not had any experience in working with incarcerated survivors. And they may not feel as prepared as they could have. So one of our goals is to making sure that it's not just one person who's supporting incarcerated folks, but it's really everyone has their hands on that project in some way, or at least has built some awareness around what it looks like to support incarcerated survivors. So that is a resource I'm sharing with you all. Like I said, I'm going to be putting this on another webpage with the recording of this webinar, and you all can take a look at it whenever you'd like to. I'm going to pause and just see if anybody has any questions, because I feel like I've been talking a lot and sharing lots and lots of resources. So if you want to backtrack to another slide that I did not ask if you had any questions to, by all means, please do so. So I'll stop talking. And you're welcome to raise your hand and let me know I have something to say. I'm going to unmute myself or drop a line in the chat. I'm staying silent because I know sometimes it takes a while to drop a question in the chat or to think of what you want to ask. All right, well, there is going to be time at the end of our presentation, at the end of our webinar. So if you haven't thought of anything yet, we will save some time later on today. And I'm actually going to pass this on to Jenica to help us moderate our panel with Lisa and Connie.
Yeah, thanks, Marcella. I really appreciate that. So I've had the utmost privilege of getting to meet with Connie and Lisa, along with our other TA providers, and hear about their work. But when we were thinking about how to share different leadership techniques and share different experiences in how to build or rebuild programming that supports incarcerated survivors, these two came to mind immediately. So do you want to go to the next slide? So I'll do some introductions first, and then we'll get into our questions. So we have Connie Cueva, which uses she, her pronouns, from Prevail. And Connie was born and raised in Stockton, California. And she has been an advocate for Prevail since February of 2002. She's currently the RISE program manager, overseeing 6 different departments, including the department focused on supporting incarcerated folks. And then we have Lisa Dawson, also using she, her pronouns, from Valley Oasis. Comes from years of human service and advocacy work, previously working with the Hawaii Department of Human Services, Mental Health America of Los Angeles, the Children's Bureau, and currently Valley Oasis. And as the Director of Trauma Services, Lisa oversees multiple programs: domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse treatment services. She is tasked with building and sustaining an inclusive rape crisis center, sexual assault response team, and developing an incarcerated survivor team. Lisa has a degree in nonprofit management and holds a credential as a psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner with a passion for psychosocial well-being built from hope, self-determination, empowerment, and recovery. And she loves being outside, reading, and spending time with her family, plants, and pets. So I can't express my gratitude enough for both of you for joining us and sharing your experience here today with our panel. So welcome. So we'll kind of get started. And so rape crisis centers are often at different stages of their program building or different stages of programming in general. What we'll do is, well, let me backtrack a little bit. We'll ask questions, then we'll have each of you answer, and then we'll go through the next questions just so people know the kind of the lay of the land. But can you all share a little bit about what it was like when you first began to really support incarcerated survivors, and first began starting to support incarcerated survivors? Lisa, do you want to go first, Lisa?
Sure, I'll start. Thank you for inviting me to participate. Listening to the presentation, I recall the saying, everything old is new again, and congratulations on 10 years. The PREA project is not new to Valley Oasis, so it has been around, but I started in the position in March of 2023. So I came back after the pandemic, and I'm based out of the Rape Crisis Center. There was a gap in services for the PREA project specifically. So we lost a lot of historical knowledge that was gone. So it was piecing together all those puzzle pieces, like was expressed, and through TA, which has been so invaluable to me, sitting with Jenica and Hamila, to actually explore what direction we wanted to take as an agency. So historically, our PREA services were provided by one single person, a sexual assault advocate coordinator, who at that time was going into the detention facility. And that was a real pro to having a single point of contact. They were able to develop a relationship with detention staff, actually meet with victim survivors in person within the facility. But with the staff changing over, we lost that as well. And so when I started, the existing Rape Crisis Center wasn't responding to PREA calls. And when you said you got PREA hotline calls and we're told that there's nobody here to help, I sure hope that wasn't Valley Oasis, but it could have been, because when I got to know staff and talk about it and ask who's providing PREA service, services? Nobody was. We would answer hotline calls, but that was about the extent of it. And so talking with Jenica and Hamila, I thought we need to restructure, and what might that look like? And lo and behold, there is the tool that Marcella shared about creating a rape crisis incarcerated survivor team. And so that's the route we took. We met as a team, and the goal was to create buy-in, and from a strengths-based approach, what are we doing well? What's working for us, and how can we build on that and expand on that? So we're fully staffed. We have a receptionist, we have outreach education coordinators, we have sexual assault advocates. We've got all the people in place. Now we need the knowledge, training, skills, ability to do the work. The biggest challenge, I think, for staff was fear. Not having served incarcerated survivors before, there was some fear and apprehension. Can I do this work? Do I have what it takes to do the work? And as a team, they all do. Our North Star really is that we want to end sexual violence for everyone in all places. And our incarcerated survivors are no different, and they're part of our community. So there you go.
Thank you so much. And I love how you ended up with incarcerated survivors are part of our community. I cannot, every time I hear that, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And Connie, do you want to share a little bit about your experience?
Sure. Prior to becoming the PREA coordinator back in 2017, or I became PREA coordinator in 19, I'm sorry. But prior to that, we were basically doing the standard services. So we didn't have like a set person doing any type of PREA services. Anyone who answered the crisis line would take the call, but we never provided ongoing services. It was mostly providing like a resource or another phone number. And then when we would get letters through the mail, there was a template already created that we would just put the person's name and then send it back. And again, it was like basically a letter stating that we don't provide ongoing services, that they have our support, but here's some resources of who you can call or who you can contact. And then our advocates were going out to the hospital response. And so if there was, a PREA start or that required a hospital response, we did go out to them. But again, we didn't follow up with the client. We took the information, but that was it. And so as an advocate, I did have a really negative experience to my first PREA start in 2017. So that really grew my interest of, trying to create a team or even trying to create some services that we can possibly provide our incarcerated survivors. But it really took 2019 when we had a whole restructure of our executive team. And then I was promoted to the PREA coordinator because I was like really vocal about things that we wanted to provide. So when I became the PREA coordinator in 2019, I brought the opportunity to collaborate to our sexual assault and domestic violence team, who was answering the hotline calls, who was doing the hospital response. And I just asked them like, hey, like, what if we really expanded the services? And at that time, I think we were about a team of 7 or 8. And I got completely shut down. I was told there's no way I want to go on with this. There's absolutely no way I want to do this, except for 2 advocates that really said, let's do this. Like, let's embark on this journey together. And so really and then by that time in 2020 I was promoted to program manager, so I was overseeing this department. So that told me no. So as we do have a high turnover rate in nonprofit. As our advocates are leaving, I decided to really just make it a job duty. So my executive team, I cannot say enough about them and how much they supported me in the beginning and how much they continue to support. So I just made it a job requirement. I actually we put it in the not the resume. We put it in the job description, and we also put it in our interview questions, because I really wanted to gauge people's biases when I was interviewing that person. Not just for PREA services, but just in general. I just really wanted to gauge someone's just their biases. But it really took just a whole change, and now I have a whole new team, and everyone just comes in knowing that they're going to provide PREA services. So I do have a team of 9 that provides this service, and everyone knows, that this is part of their job duty.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a requirement. It's a requirement at your org now to support incarcerated folks. Sounds like for both of your teams. So now that y'all have been able to do that, have been able to incorporate that into your PREA response team or into, your teams in general, what are some of the roles and responsibilities they hold now, and what kind of structures have you put together now?
So I'll go ahead. So for example, our receptionist, who's a slash advocate, she's fairly new and still in training, but taking on the role of supporting the PREA project and answering the hotline and being able to serve incarcerated survivors pulls her into the work that the team does, which is great. And it builds a lot of camaraderie there. In adopting the incarcerated survivor team, we're there for each other. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You've got a team here to support you. And each of us takes a different role in that. As the supervisor, I really wanted to bring in some reflective supervision to the team to really explore how are they feeling doing the work? What are the ways I can support you? And I'm really modeling this after the support I get from my TA calls. So I'm just transferring this work onto the staff I oversee because it's so invaluable to me to have that support when I'm dealing with those challenges that I get from Jenica and Hamila, and I want to impart that to the team as well. And we've invited the team to our TA calls. They've joined us. I've had our executive director join as well, because I really want to ingrain and change the culture here at Valley Oasis for supporting incarcerated survivors. I wanted to say one other thing. What was it? It slipped my mind. Oh, our community outreach educator, as an example of how she's integrated in this PREA work, we put on quarterly 72-hour trainings for our volunteers, and we invite the PREA staff from the detention center to come and present one day of the training. And we do that 4 times a year. So she's actually helped to maintain that communication with the lieutenant and sergeant at the detention center, and was very helpful to me. For example, when we had our first training and they were here, I had the opportunity to invite them into my office and have a conversation, introduce myself, get to know them, and learn a bit about the historical context that I had missed from their perspective as well, which was really invaluable. And then our sexual assault advocates do respond to forensic calls for incarcerated survivors at our local hospital. And so while they're not going into the detention facility, we do have contact that way. And for one of the newer advocates, she came back, and part of the community commitments we made to each other was learning the vernacular of the clients we're working with. And she says, I learned some new terms and things in my encounter with the individual at the forensic unit. And she was really proud of herself for gaining that little bit of new knowledge and ability to communicate with someone she was previously fearful of helping or being unsure she could help. And so that's some ways the staff are collaborating and coordinating.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Connie.
Can you repeat that question again? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So now that you have your teams kind of established and whatnot, what are some of like the roles and responsibilities and things that they're taking on now? And what does that look like?
So my PREA coordinator, she is solely responsible for creating the curriculum, going into the facilities to provide support groups and doing on-site one-on-ones. And then my team, what they're responsible for is answering the hotline calls and doing the hospital response. The reason why my PREA coordinator does not answer the crisis line is because I really want to ensure that my other advocates are having that not only that exposure, but because when they meet that person over the phone or respond out to their respond to their hospital response, they're able to continue to stay with that person. So I didn't want to bombard our PREA coordinator, Carmen, with just, okay, the phone's ringing, we have we can tell what number it is, because in the beginning when we got the funding to have a PREA coordinator and develop our KA program, that what was happening is, oh, they would see the GTL or the 713 number, and my advocates weren't answering it at first. And so we had to have like a meeting and saying, hey, just because Carmen is in her role now and she's our PREA coordinator does not mean she has to take on everything. You guys are still advocates, and it doesn't matter whether the person's incarcerated or not. They're calling that hotline. You're going to answer it. You're still going to provide their services. And I really wanted to take the stigma of this person's incarcerated, so they go to Carmen, and then we take everyone else. So at the end of the day, whether you're responding out to a hospital call or you're answering that phone, it's still a client. So you're still going to provide them that support. So I really wanted to ensure that Carmen, who is our PREA coordinator, did not endure that burnout of having 10 messages when she comes back into the office, or getting called out to a SART when she's not on call or anything like that. I really wanted her to focus on developing that curriculum and being able to provide services on site. And that doesn't mean that any of our other advocates don't have clearances to go on site. So let's say they did respond out to a SART and they are going to provide accompaniment to the ongoing investigations. They can still get that. They still have that clearance to go on. So most of our advocates are clear to go. It's just that Carmen is the key person to provide on-site services.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And as you all are talking about this, I just can't, I keep thinking back to how much you both have built your advocates' capacity to support incarcerated survivors. And you guys have both listed really clear examples on how you've done that. But it makes me think, how has it increased your capacity overall as an agency to support survivors in general? How has it improved your programs that you might not, like, have there been things that you might not have thought it would have impacted, or things that it would have improved overall? So in short, like, how has supported incarcerated survivors supported your programs, like, overall in general?
I'll start. While seeing the personal growth in staff and the capacity they're building, but also a level of happiness that wasn't there before. They're finding some joy in the actual work that they were so fearful to do, which is fabulous. Their creativity and innovation, and wanting to, without being asked or prompted, I want to create a data tracker for PREA and let me put together when we get hotline calls, the receptionist can pull up the sheet and have all kinds of resources. And they're just really coming together and being innovative and creative and reaching out to our larger agency, of which there are about 140 folks, and really providing information and trying to make our Rape Crisis Center a place for the community to come and receive services and support. And this includes the entire community. We don't want to exclude anybody. And we've built relationships with re-entry programs. And oftentimes I'll get letters from the detention facilities, and I'm able to connect folks to support in the community to help them prepare if they're leaving the facilities. So we've grown by leaps and bounds in 11 months. We're really excited to see where we go in the new year.
Has it really only been 11 months? That's wild. Connie, go for it.
So I would say how helping incarcerated survivors or providing services has really removed the biases of what makes a victim and what makes a perpetrator. We've had to have some really hard, open honest conversations, because in the beginning, like I said, I got a lot of resistance, and what I would hear is, this could be the person that hurt the child that I went to this forensic interview with. This could be the person to the hospital response that I went to, or this could be the person who, abused my client. And so we really had to have some hard conversations. And one thing I really started with the conversations with is, when we go out to a hospital response and the person's not incarcerated, we don't ask them what their past sins were and then decide whether or not we're going to help them. We go into advocate mode. The only difference is this person's incarcerated. It does not mean that they're not in need. And something that we've learned is hurt people hurt other people. So we cannot judge, and that's not our place to judge somebody to that what they could have or could not have done. And so we had to have those conversations. And that is why when I started interviewing, and we put this into their interviews, and I've had resistance even in my interviews, like, you guys are supposed to help people, like, why would you guys work with, well, they would say other words instead of incarcerated survivors, but you had to help, and that's where, of course they get my spill of why we do this. And it's hurt people hurt other people. Why would we continue to hurt more people? If it's somebody who experienced something traumatic, they need somebody there regardless of what their past, and it's none of our business what anyone's done prior to why they're in front of us. And if they're in front of us because they need to hurt us, because they've been hurt. And so we had to have a lot of those conversations. And that is why, like I said, my team is just very passionate about what we do. And again, it's our services have expanded, but and again, I can't say enough about my executive leadership, because when we wanted to start providing case management, and we wanted to start supplying or start doing like some kind of not case management, client assistance for things that they needed. When I went to my CEO, she was like, why haven't we ever done this? Like, why do we just put the stigma, oh, they're incarcerated, they don't need case management, they don't need help? Like, so I really got a lot of support from my leadership. So I want to say that providing PREA services has now no longer been like just a hush hush thing that we do. Yeah, we do that because it's regular, something that we have to do, and it's more publicized. Like, this is what we like. This is part of our services. Like, we're proud to say that we provide PREA services. So I really want to say I believe that providing PREA services has opened the mind of our agency in a whole. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, Connie, you answered it tenfold. You're getting a lot of love in the chat. I just want to let you know. Got Cooper saying it's not our job to judge them. Amen. Good stuff. So just, yeah, you hit it right. You hit the nail right on the head. It's not our job to judge them. It's not, when you said, when we called out to like an accompaniment, we're not asking someone their sins. We're not asking someone, what they've done with their X, Y, and Z. Why would we do that with an incarcerated person? Like, why is that the only exception to the rule? You gave me goosebumps, Connie. Wow. So we're going to shift gears a tiny bit and talk a little bit about like workplace culture. And you all have both talked about what supportive environments you have and how you all have shifted that. We know that this movement in general can be really empowering and inspiring, but it can also be really difficult and really, really, really heavy sometimes. The culture within an organization can often have a huge impact on the team, have a huge impact on survivors. And so, what does a supportive culture look like in each of your organizations? What does that look for advocates? What does that look like for admin, for fiscal, for the culture in general at your organizations?
So at Valley Oasis, we're really trying to infuse trauma-informed practices throughout the organization, reviewing our policies and really looking at the language we use and those things. But some practical things with the Rape Crisis Center, we have staff meetings twice a month, and we build in mindfulness activities into our meetings. We sometimes we'll go off-site for a meeting, and I'll host a breakfast or just to build some team bonding and some trust with the Rape Crisis Center staff and team. We invite folks to join us. We invite our children's therapists to come and walk us through mindfulness activities that we can use for ourselves and with the victim survivors we work with. We did hold in September self-care spa day, and we transformed our rape crisis center into a spa. And we invited our staff and community partners to come join us. We slotted 6 one-hour slots and invited 10 people to come for each slot. And we did aromatherapy and yoga and playing in the sandbox and watercolors. And we provided healthy snacks. And we want to find a way to bring some self-care to our community as well as to staff. And then with some of the practical stuff, I had staff complete a vicarious trauma survey because I really wanted to measure my own effectiveness with the team. And it was really eye-opening. The tool we used was fantastic, and it helped me to see where we needed improvements. And the one thing that did come out regarding vicarious trauma was the team really wants something in place to deal with critical incidents and debriefs and how we handle that. So that's one of my goals for this year, to really work on that.
So our agency is actually doing a self-development day pilot program. And so because we really, I mean, let's be honest, in nonprofit world, we can't pay top dollar. We can't compete with corporations. So what we really did was try to put like a self-care package together when somebody starts. And so with our self-development program, our direct staff and our coordinators who provide direct services, they work 32 hours a week, and then they have a self-development day. And so that, and it can be any type of self-development they do. So they're technically off that day, but they're off that day for self-development. So if cleaning your house and doing your laundry and getting ready for, you know, the week is your self-development, you do that. But you're given one self-development day a week to work on yourself. Because let's be honest, we have like really crazy weeks sometimes, and those times we really don't want to bring our work home with us. So you know what, you have a Friday, you know, the kids are at school, and you can spend that day working on yourself, decompressing, so you're not taking that trauma, you're not taking that home to your family, and they're not staying, you know, you're not finding other ways to cope with it, you know, whether it's, you know, having too much wine and watching Netflix. You're able to do something healthy for yourself. So we do offer that, and it is just for our direct staff and our coordinators that provide direct service. And then our coordinators who don't provide any direct service and they oversee programs, then they actually get one self-development day per pay period. So it's like one every other week. But we really focus this on our team members that provide that direct service. And I really have to say, the morale from that, oh my gosh, it has just increased so much. And I love to tease my direct staff, like, oh, when you're at home and sleeping in, like, remember me, that's in the office. Like, I love to tease them, but my thing is and you know, management and executive do not get self-development days, which is I'm good with. I'm not complaining, but I love that we cater this to our team members who provide direct service. Because you know what, they're in the forefront. They're the ones that are hearing these stories. They're the ones that are providing these services. So I am more than happy to be in my office 5 days a week, just knowing that my team on a weekly basis is being able to take care of themselves. So that's what we do. I wish we could do more, but right now that's what we're doing to really increase morale and have our team take care of themselves.
Beautiful. Thank you both so much. And you're like, I wish we could do more. Yeah, that's amazing. That in itself is amazing. That's so awesome. I feel like you both have really touched on this, but just want to open it up just in case. You know, how is vicarious trauma specifically prevented or remedied in either of your organizations? If you already feel like you answered it, no worries. Just it's important enough. I want to make sure that we open that up just in case.
I think, Jenica, this is one area to be explored. It's a work in progress, to be honest. Because number one, I needed to understand where staff were coming from, to have a place to start. And in the 11 months, there's been so much to do, and I sort of feel a little bit guilty that it's taken until now to do this, but it is what it is. I do think it's an ongoing thing that you're never going to reach your nirvana, right? And continue to find ways to support staff and be more intentional, I think.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I love your staff development days. I'm gonna have to adopt that.
I love that. Yeah, and I love what you said about, you're not going to reach your nirvana, so to speak, that being part of this movement, part of the rape crisis movement, part of the movement to support incarcerated folks, is it is really something that you have to continue to touch base with, continue to mold, because it's changing a lot. There are different things, and we really want to make sure that we're taking an intentional approach in a lot of ways. So yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that. Connie, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
I would say just being available, myself and my coordinators who are on call for SART, really just being available staff. Like I've always told even when I'm doing my interviews, I'm on call 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have an on-call SART supervisor on call. Somebody's on call 24 hours, 7 days a week as well. So there's something going on. I would rather, and it's in the evening or during the day, I would rather you call me and talk to me about it. I've talked to advocates 3 o'clock in the morning on the way home from a SART where they're crying in the car, and I'm on the phone with them and they're in the driveway, and I would rather them be able to get it all out before they go home. As a mom, I know how important it is to when you get home, like I want to be all about my baby boy. So I understand how it is. You don't want to take what you experienced that day and take it home. And I don't want none of my team members to ever feel like they have to take it home with them. So if that means I need to stay later and talk it out with them, then that's what I'm going to do. And my 2 coordinators, Karina and Carmen, are absolutely amazing in also making themselves available. And we always say, you're not bothering me. I would rather hear about it. I would rather hear everything, and I can't take it away from them, but I would rather them get it off their chest and talk to somebody than, and then, because I'm all about when you're home, like don't think about work, be with your family, be with whatever your home life is. I want it to be the best of the best. I don't want you thinking about this case. So I want you to be able to talk to somebody about it. So again, it's just really being available. It's just that's what I really feel like we do to try to really stop or them taking their work home with them.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were talking about, just getting off their chest, just being able to talk about it, and with someone that knows it too. We can talk to our partners, but there is confidentiality. They don't quite get what it means to be in a SART room. There's a lot of layers to that, and that listening is so crucial. And being open to that is huge. Okay. Well, we'll end up with one of our last questions here. What advice would you give to someone who wants to improve their workplace culture? I feel like you actually both just answered it in the last 2 questions. Or any advice you would give to someone starting their program in general?
I would say be aligned with your executive leadership, because if you're not aligned and you don't know their expectations or what they're going to allow you to do, then you might set yourself up for failure. If this is the restrictions and this is why, then work on how maybe you guys can expand that. But I would just say you have to be aligned with your executive leadership. Like I said, back in 2017, when I had this experience and I wanted to be able to, do something, I didn't know what, being shot down and being told no was absolutely heartbreaking. So when we got all new executive leadership, supportive and executive leadership, I was able to, go from doing what is required to now we provide on-site services, case management, aftercare. Like our program has expanded by case need, but I would say it's because of the support of our executive leadership.
I would add one thing. Be supportive, but also push the envelope. Don't be afraid. Bring your creative ideas. Like Connie's staff development day. I mean, think about it. 10 years ago when PREA started, I bet that wasn't on the table, right? So I'm all for pushing the envelope a little bit, be respectful as you do it, but share your creativity and innovation for sure.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like I know you both pretty well through our TA questions and our TA meetings, but I feel like I learned a lot just in these last couple minutes here. Let's see. Did folks have questions? Oh wait, Marcella, I'm sorry. Thank you both so much. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I was just putting everyone on the spotlight. So if folks have questions, you can ask questions of everybody. So I'm going to spotlight.
Oh, you're on mute.
I didn't want to put Connie and Lisa on the spot, but yes, if folks have questions for any 6 of us, now is the time. We've got 10 more minutes. And we will still be sharing our email addresses soon. So yes, feel free to raise your hand. You can unmute yourself. Let us know if you'd like to do that, or drop some questions in the Q&A or the chat.
I have a question.
Go for it, Cooper.
What would you say, like, are some of the most common or like problematic barriers when coming into detention facilities, like other than potentially the mail being read? Because I was aware of that one, but do you feel like people are happy to see you or not?
I would say for me, the first time when we established a relationship with our local CDCR, I had the most supportive PREA sergeant that I think he set the bar so high that when he left, I had to reestablish that relationship. And it took me almost 3 months to even find out who the new PREA sergeant was. It took not only emailing a lot of people and within the facility, I even had to get JDI and Valor involved because it was so hard to find this PREA sergeant. And then this PREA sergeant wasn't as welcoming as the past one. So the past one really spoiled us. And I thought this is just how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be this easy. And so it really took humbling myself and reestablishing another relationship and learning to work. And it's not that you so much work around them, but I had to learn their work style and what would be easiest to get a response out of them. So, and then that person left and we got another one. So really, I would say it just depends on that PREA sergeant's want for a relationship, but really just we constantly have to reestablish relationships. And then the pandemic didn't help at that time, but I would say just really I've learned just have to work around their work style.
Thank you.
I also see we got another question in the chat a few minutes ago. This one's for you, Connie. Rachel's asking if she could hear more about the staff development days and how you support that financially.
So I don't know financially how we support that. I can definitely get some more information though. My CEO loves to talk about the staff development program. So I can always, I can give you guys my email. I can so you want to email me, but I can definitely get more information on how it is financially supported because I honestly don't know. I just know program wise how we do it.
Thanks, Connie. Maybe, Connie, I don't know if you feel comfortable putting your email in the chat or responding to Rachel with your
Sure.
email, so that way
To everybody.
y'all can connect. Yes. Any other questions, folks? We have 6 more minutes and we can take maybe 1 or 2 more questions. No, not yet. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and share some action items and share our email addresses. But if you're typing something up, don't hit delete. We will still answer your question. I just want to share this stuff. All right, so I want to share some action items for folks, just reminders of some steps y'all can take to support incarcerated survivors, you can reach out to us for training and technical assistance. Maybe you don't want to ask a question now because you've drafted an email to us. We welcome that. We also encourage folks to review the checklist I shared and the other onboarding resources. I'm sorry, Edward, I realized you were going to share this and then I just went into it. We're going to set goals for, we're hoping folks can set some goals for their team using the checklist. We're hoping folks can connect with their leadership team and their partners and share something you learned from this webinar. And then if you are experiencing barriers at your county jail or your CDCR facility or your juvenile hall, or if you have an immigration facility, we encourage you to submit those barriers to access, submit those barriers to the access form if it's applicable to you, or email us directly. So those are some action items there. And then we have our email addresses. So that's me up there, Marcella, and we have Jenica, Jessica, and Edward. I realize I should probably copy and paste those in the chat so you all can copy and paste them for later. And then we also have a feedback survey. This is our first time providing an orientation in a really long time. And so we're just wanting to hear whether it's this was helpful to you, if there's anything in particular that you learned or that you wanted to learn from this orientation. So let me go ahead and drop that in the chat. And that's that, y'all. We've got 4 more minutes still. So if folks have questions, let us know.
Well, and I'll just add, so Connie mentioned how hard it can be to figure out who to reach out to and how to establish those relationships. And I would say that that's kind of the key to establishing sort of the services, good services. So if you're having trouble, definitely reach out to us. If you want to set some accountability for yourself, definitely reach out to us. We can, check in with you regularly and just say, hey, so did you set up that meeting? Did you go have that tour? And just sort of help guide you as you set up services, because it is tricky. So that is what we're here for. You can reach out to any one of us, but Jenica especially has our calendars and can set up a meeting. So I definitely encourage you to do that.
And Jenica, go for it.
Oh, wait.
You sent me a message. I'm just saying, go for it.
No worries. Well, 2 things I also wanted to add, definitely email us, definitely reach out to us. And then at the bottom of the feedback survey, if you're like not sure what to ask, there's a place for you to put your email and check a couple boxes so we can reach out to you. Because that can sometimes be a little intimidating to reach out to folks. And just wanted to give a huge round of applause and thank you to Lisa and Connie for sharing your expertise. Like I said, I learned a few new things. I feel like some of the ways that you both approach the work is super unique, but also can apply to a lot of different situations and a lot of rape crisis centers. I'm sure, I don't know if y'all see it, but you had a lot of love in the chat. So just really want to uplift and thank you both from the bottom of my heart and from the TA team. And thank you everyone who joined us and everybody who participated and had questions. We, like Marcella said, it's the first time we've done an orientation in a while, and we're really grateful to have this space with you all today.
Thank you so much, everybody on the team, our staff, JDI staff, and Connie and Lisa. I'm so sorry. I'm just now seeing a question from Rachel. So we were about to say bye, and I'm seeing Rachel's message. So I'm going to respond to that, and then other folks, please chime in. But Rachel's asking, CPAP serves a widespread culturally specific community and doesn't necessarily set up services based on jurisdiction or location. Any thoughts on how we can partner to serve survivors in ways that aren't facility based? My initial reaction to this is re-entry services are really important. Folks that might have been up in Chowchilla, somewhere in Central California, might be living in LA and may need that type of support. So I'm not sure if that's something that CPAF is working on now or interested in doing, but I think once folks are leaving the facility, that is a huge gap in services. And oftentimes we see that there are so many survivors that were impacted by sexual violence or domestic violence prior to incarceration that were pushed into incarceration for that reason and didn't have the space or the capacity to work on those emotional traumas and in the facility, and maybe wanting to reach out to an agency once they've been released. So highly encourage looking into that. But I also see maybe some light bulbs went off with the team. So feel free to add if you have anything. No? Okay, y'all were just like, great question. And it was a great question. Thank you, everybody. That is our last question. We're at 2:30. We appreciate you all. Please fill out our survey. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.